So I've got this gold medal hanging around my neck and I'm national champion with a time that I'm not very happy with.
Hey team, and welcome to another episode of Jeans and a Nice Top. And this is man number 2 of the podcast. How exciting. I'm finally racking the men in, getting them to brave coming on and talk to me. I know I say I fangirl every week, but I don't think you're ready because this week I have a para-olympian. A paralympic athlete is on the podcast, talking to me, speaking his words of wisdom, the one and only Blaine Hunt, who is a GB Paralympic cyclist. Wow, this episode is so inspiring. He delves deep into life as a Paralympian, his journey into getting into that, enabling opportunities for others, and also chasing the dream and the relationship with fear. I think there's a lot of inspiration you can take if you're pursuing the sports yourself, but also there's a lot of transferable skill sets and words of wisdom that I think would be very useful for everyday life, all surrounding things like habits, motivation, pushing yourself, and staying committed to the bigger picture. I hope you love this episode as much as I did. Blaine is a really kick-ass individual and somebody you should definitely check out. As always, don't forget to rate, review and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at Smile to Health. And if you like poetry, check out my book on Amazon at Curse to Feel, available worldwide. Oh, and a cheeky one, I'm in the finals for the Creative Impact Awards, so if you fancy voting for me, I'm under the Mental Health Awareness category. That would be great. Ciao! Welcome to another episode of Jeans and a Nice Top podcast, and this time we are blessed with the sensational Blaine Hunt, who is part of the Great Britain cycling team. He's a world champion medalist. We are in the presence of an incredible human. I'm bowing in your achievements right now. He's a current national champion, a coach and an athlete. Is there anything this man can't do? Who knows? He's ticking all of the boxes and conquering all of the mountains. But for those who don't know you, tell us who you are and what you do.
So, yep, you've summarised that pretty well. My name's Blaine. I'm a GB track cyclist. I specialise in sprint events. And current national champion for the 1 kilometre, so it's 4 laps on the velodrome, and multiple time world championship medalist. Currently waiting to find out if I'm going to Tokyo or not.
That was one of my questions to ask you. Is it all still up in the air at the moment?
So selections next Tuesday. They've already done the able-bodied squad. So I should probably mention that I'm a para athlete. So I've got a disability to my right lower leg, but selection is next Tuesday. I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you if I was selected on Tuesday either way.
Yeah, non-disclosure.
You can just read between the lines about my mood. But
this is true.
So it's a big day, Tuesday.
That's so exciting.
So this is probably the moment where I should jump in and tell you that unfortunately Blaine did not go to Tokyo. However, this man is unstoppable, and when one door closes, another door opens, and it's not even that the door's closed. He's just walked past it. He doesn't need it. He's moving on to bigger and better things. But I know you're going to ask me, so I thought I'd put that in there as a little slight disclosure, but watch this space because this man is doing some great things.
Yeah.
So how do the selection processes work?
So the selection process works by you basically set a time that nobody can argue with, and then they just invite you to go to the games on Tuesday. That would be the simplest way to do it. If you haven't quite got a world beating time, then they have to make a case for you, and so they take into consideration races that you've done, training data, and because it's everything I do is on the velodrome, I have time and chip on the bike, so every time I ride 10 meters, it times you between the 10 meters
between each 10.
So they've got really accurate data that they can then present, whereas it's a bit more difficult for people in different sports and different types of racing because it's not as measurable.
Not as easy to track. Well, that's so exciting because I feel like Tokyo is really going to come around the corner first. It feels like only yesterday that we did the 2012 Olympics.
Yeah, so fast. I was speaking to one of the other guys on the AB squad yesterday. I was having lunch with him, and he was like, this is probably going to be my last Olympics, and I've done my last week at the velodrome. Then I do 3 weeks back home. Then I go to a holding camp for the last holding camp ever, and then he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do afterward. And I was
it's the end of an era.
Yeah, well, it is. The guy, I can't tell you who it is, but he's been selected. He's been there multiple times. And he's at the end of his career, and so he knows this will be his last time for everything. So we're having a bit of a conversation about, because I've done it the other way around. I've been working for the past 15 years, and now I'm going into it, become a professional athlete, whereas he's been a professional athlete and now he's going out the other side.
Yeah.
So just,
and that must be a really bizarre transition to go from like the podium, as you so to speak, to normal world in inverted commas.
Yeah, because he's never done anything else other than been an elite athlete.
Yeah, because it takes over your entire life, right? Because every aspect
100%.
of your being has to be moving forwards towards that goal.
Yeah, and like, so from my own perspective, I've been working full time, and then I thought I'd be able to do both when I got put on the program, and it's very quickly become apparent that it's very hard to do both, because your mindset for training needs to be completely different to your mindset for work. And when you've got people emailing you, putting you in the wrong mindset, and then you have to go and do a training session, and you want to be like hyped for it.
Yeah, and top of your
someone's
game.
just emailed you because they can't log onto their computer. You're like, pull yourself together. You're an adult, and you're emailing me.
Yeah. So, especially when you've got these big crazy goals to move towards.
Exactly. So yeah, I've very quickly realized it's difficult to do both. And like the people that I do see trying to do both, they don't quite, they're there near the top, but they're never at the top. The ones at the top are the ones that are fully dedicated,
committed to it. I totally relate to that, in the sense that I come from a performer background, and like I've been learning how to dance, I've been writing my own music and things like that since I literally could walk. And it does have to be encompass like every pillar of your life is surrounding that end goal and that vision. You can't kind of half-ass it. You have to use your full ass to get there. So I'm definitely going to ask you more questions about how you kind of manage the all-round life of relationships, both like romantic and with family and friends, work balance, and then still committing yourself to this huge goal that you've already achieved but are continuing to further. But before we go into that, I'd love for you to give everyone a bit of a background about you and how you got into here. I know sport has always been kind of a core pillar of your life, but because you started out in rugby, but tell us a bit more about the journeys and obstacles that you faced that have led you to be a Paralympian.
So yeah, always been involved in sport has helped, because I'm a big believer that multi-sport wins. Like I feel like if you've done lots of sports as a kid, you end up being a well-rounded athlete in the long term. So yeah, I was, from an early age, I was like, Mum, I want to do kickboxing, I want to play cricket, I want to play tennis, I want to do karate, I want to do boxing, and like
always super active.
Yeah, and like 2 weeks ago passed, like, I'm bored of that. Just let's go do something else, and then I'll find something else that I want to do that someone else is doing, and then end up doing that. So I'd say that's like a very good like platform to then go in, like narrow it down. I feel like a lot of people I see, they are very specific straight away, and I don't think that's necessarily that good. So yeah, I've always, like, all through school and everything, was always very athletic. And then I was playing rugby when I was 15. I mean, it was quite a high level for the age group, so I was playing like county level.
Amazing. I've got a few friends that I mean, I love rugby. Rugby's probably out of a lot of the like mainstream sports is one of my favorite, but it's a really difficult sport. It's very high contact, and
there's a lot of injuries, and you don't, when you're playing it, you don't really think about it. You're like, I just smashed up my shoulder last week, but I really want to play this week, so it's fine. Go for it. And like, the parents are like, oh, you'll be all right, magic sponge, on you go. And like, even like back then, oh, you've hit your head, so you'll be all right, there's no worry of like concussion or brain damage.
Exactly.
So things have changed a lot, but then I was playing rugby when I was 15. I got pushed from behind, and then I put my leg out to stop myself going off the pitch, and then my knee basically went like this.
At this point, Blaine made a gesture that pretty much says that his knee went in a direction it really should not have gone in, and I don't need to say any more than that.
So then that pulled all the ligaments and damaged all the ligaments in my leg.
Oh my goodness.
And then I went in for an operation like many months later, because they were like, you can still walk, and it was holding on by a thread. So if you imagine, like, that's all of it. It had torn, but that was holding on. So I could walk and run in a straight line, but as soon as I tried to do anything that was lateral, side to side, it would the knee would just like slip like this.
Oh my gosh. And the knee is such a unique joint as well, because you've got like the patella, which is like kind of floating, and then there's no real support there. It is just ligaments and tendons. There's not really a lot of strength behind it.
Exactly. So I went in for an operation on that, and then the surgeon was drilling through one of the bones, and when he came out the other side, the drill slipped a bit and he hit the artery in my leg, and then I got something called Compartment Syndrome, which is, so when you eat chicken, sometimes you get like a layer of film on it. And that is like, it looks like a kind of skinny layer, but like it's called fascia, and that holds your muscles together. So they're not just like, loose in your body. They're like actually held in a position and they move within it, but when you get swelling inside the compartment, it holds it together and too tight, and when it needs to, it can't swell, so they have to cut it open. I basically got left too long without that being sliced open, so then I got nerve damage, so all the lack of blood to the nerves, and they basically died. So my foot only moves a certain amount, and then I have limited range of motion in my ankle. So then after that, I just led a normal life, really. I did some sport. I played touch rugby, but could only sidestep one way. I could pass the ball really well, but but I couldn't run like I used to. And I'd always injure that right side because it wasn't operating properly. And then I went on a ski holiday with some friends, and I was like, look, I'll come along. 300 quid, like, what have I got to lose?
Literally, ski holiday, the joys.
And I was like, I don't even know if I can ski, so give it a go and see what happens. And then I was skiing with my mates, and like, I'd been when I was younger, so I knew how to ski roughly. I could snowplow and get down. So, and then I was skiing with them, and I was like, you know what, I think I'm better than some of the guys I'm skiing with, and like, I've got something wrong with me. So, and then I saw a talent ID for British snow sports, and it was at Hemel Snow Centre, one of the indoor fridges, if you like. So I went there, I got picked up by them, and then spent most of that year skiing on the camps with the British disabled ski team in Hintertux. And but then when I went to get my classification for that, to become part of that sport properly and officially, they said, because I'm in a ski boot and my problem is in my ankle and the nerve damage for that, the ski boot takes away a lot of the mobility in your ankle, so they wouldn't give me the classification. But before so before I got to that point, they said they'd classify me for snowboarding because it's a soft boot, but I couldn't snowboard very well, obviously, because that doesn't work properly.
Mobility,
exactly. So but before I had gone to that, because it was an international classification, I'd already gone to the cycling guys throughout that year, and I said, look, I want to just check if I'm eligible for parasport, and they said I was a C5, and I was like, okay, cool, ticking the box. The physio that looked me over and looked at my medical records, she was like, Blaine, I really recommend you not skiing. It's like, you're pretty much guaranteed to injure that knee if you ski, and I don't think you should do it. Like, you should take up cycling. And I was like, I'll be fine. I was like, there's a red button I shouldn't press, so I'll go and do it.
You want to press it. I think it's that thing, isn't it? The more, I think it's evident from the get-go that there's no mention so far at all that injury has happened, and you've gone, okay, I'm going to stop. You've not even processed that. It's gone, okay, this has happened to me, fine, what can I do now? You've not even it's almost like you've not even taken it as a hit, and obviously you have in many ways, and we'll dissect that more, but the fact that you've just kept going and kept pushing your passion from the get-go is really inspiring, because you've not allowed anything to hold you back, even if it is just the temptation of the red button.
I thought it's set, like, with my leg, I feel like it's so, like, well, it's fucked, right? So if it gets fucked up some more, what have I got to lose? Because I've actually done something that I wanted to do, and I haven't got anything to lose, really. Like, if it needs to be cut off,
may as well go for it.
It needs to be cut off. Like, it is what it is. I want to live like my life to the fullest. So anyway, 6 weeks later, I'm on a ski camp. I have a crash and blow out my knee. She was right. Anyway, so
I bet your physio loved you.
So then I went back to, like, I was like, okay, that's fine. Carry skiing. Didn't get my classification. I was meant to go to America to start skiing in Aspen, and that was the plan. And then it all fell through because I didn't get the classification. And so I went to Canada to train to be a ski instructor. I did that. Fun. I met my now fiance, came back to the UK. Exciting. And then I was just looking for something competitive to do where I could be competitive against able-bodied people, but I know I've got something wrong with me. So I was like, well, I'll try cycling at the velodrome. It's local. I'll just go and do my accreditation, see what happens. Well, I met a coach there. He was a British para coach. I just worked on the Olympics in television broadcasting, and he asked me what I did. And I said, I've just got back from Rio. And he's like, oh, I've just got back from Rio. I'm a para coach. I was like, oh, well, I'm classified as P5. And then he said, oh, why don't you come along and talent ID, which is they plonk you on a bike, a bit like the skiing guys watch you ski in the snow centre. Cycling's a bit more measurable, so they put you on a watt bike or like a turbo trainer, which is a stationary bike, and then they measure your output for sprints and longer efforts over like 3 minutes, and then they look at your data and they say, okay, you've got potential, you haven't. So then I started on that process. Obviously I had potential, and then it just went on from there, really. And then I went through the motions, and some ups and downs, and not being happy with like the support that I was giving, so I did a lot of it on my own. And now you know, back well invested in the British cycling system. So it's kind of gone full circle.
Full circle.
Yeah.
It's really interesting as well to see how your life has kind of ebb and flowed, because I'm a big believer that like everything happens for a reason, and sometimes the way things line up, if it feels easy, sometimes that's the way you're meant to go. And I feel like your life has had a very organic progression of trying things, it taking you somewhere where you've met someone or learned something, and then it's ebbed you across into another direction. So if you hadn't pursued the skiing, for example, you wouldn't have met your fiance, and then you wouldn't have had the temptation to go to the cycling. And I think that's really interesting, and it's really great to hear like stories like this, because I think it gives other people hope that there's no limitations of when you can start something or why you should be able to do something.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of people don't realize that the opportunity that they have in front of them, so they'll often like just dismiss something because they're like, oh, I can't do that, or I shouldn't do that. But I'm a big believer everything happens for a reason as well. And if you get an opportunity to do something, like when I was doing the talent IDs, I was like, this could change my life, and it has. So
literally, like, and you definitely embody this fearlessness. I talk a lot about our relationship with fear, and I think a lot of the time that is what stops people from progressing and moving forward, because they're scared to fail, or they're scared they won't be good enough. And actually that's the biggest obstacle. The obstacle isn't your ability but fear itself. Would you say that that's very much kind of how you've gotten through things? And I'd love to know how you have managed to self-motivate, specifically during the early stages when your operation did go wrong, because that could have instilled a lot of anger and frustration.
Yeah, so I'm the type of person that if you say to me you shouldn't do that, you know, a bit like the cycling physio when I first met her, you know, you shouldn't do this skiing. I was like, okay, well, gonna do the skiing now. And like, you know, they were like, you won't play rugby again. Well, I played rugby again once. I played one game, ticked it off.
But you still did it.
I still did it. And so like I don't think it was definitely wasn't intentional, but when in my early stages of cycling, I was like, you know, I was hyped for it. I was like, you know, I'm going to be the best in the world. And I would actively tell people, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to the World Championships and win. I didn't go to the World Championships and win, but like my belief was there.
Yeah, you believed so strongly in yourself that you were prepared to put in anything to get there.
Exactly. And then when I said to one of the coaches, like, oh, there's a World Championships in Rio, he laughed at me, and I was like, you don't realize it yet, but you're going to be inviting me. And like that, like laughing at me, I was like, fuck you, I'm going to do it. Like, you're basically telling me you're laughing at me, you think I'm joking. So like it just instills fire in me. So if someone says I like can't do it, or like, you know, tries to
put you down,
I'll go out of my way, and it just like a switch just goes in my head, and I'm like, fuck you, it's going to happen.
Would you say that's an automatic response to turn it into a positive and a self-motivator, or do you think it's something you've had to learn over time? Because I know that for me, I'm very much the same. If someone says you can't do that, I'll go, okay, wait and see. 6 months down the line, we'll have this conversation again, like watch what happens. But some people do really take it as a hit, and it knocks them back, and then they start to believe it, and then it feeds into negative mindset. So I was wondering how...
I think it does. Like, there's always a bit of a negative mindset because they've planted the seed there, and it's how you deal with those voices in your head of like, oh, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I like, you know, I feel a bit weak today. Like all those voices in your head are like what you have to overcome on a daily basis until you get to the point where you're like, fuck, I'm doing it. Like, this is it. But yeah, it's just, for me, I've always been like that. If somebody says you can't do it, or like tries to bet against me, I'll go out my way to win. Like, even just like small things like playing on the PlayStation, like, you know, play a game of FIFA, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to annihilate you. And I will and then if I lose, I'm like, I'll want to do it again. Like, I won't stop until I've won. So, I mean, I play this game when I'm out in the park and the dog poos. I pick up the poo bag and I get close to the bin, and then I'll be like, right, do you reckon I can get it in the bin? And then I'll try, you know, like the bin's not like open at the top. It's got
they're quite difficult to.
And I'll try and get it in. I'll be like, that was close. I'll just do it again. And I'll just do it again.
Good luck if the poo bag breaks.
Yeah, I know. They're pretty strong, apparently. So.
Oh, okay, that's always good.
Yeah, they do. They haven't not one split yet. So, but if you do find a split poo bag, it's probably me.
It's probably you throwing it, checking your aim. Are you London based?
Yeah, so central London. Just moved to near Stoke Newington.
Oh, nice.
New digs. That's been a bit of an unsettling experience, because we were in a 1-bedroom flat, and I had all of my bike stuff, and it was like there was nowhere to put it. It was like you were living, looking at it every single day. But now we're in a 2-bedroom flat. There's somewhere to hide stuff, and I actually feel like I've got a living environment now, which is nice to come back to.
So much
I spend half the week in Manchester and then half the week down here.
Do you think there's a lot of benefit in having multiple bases?
No, I feel like, well, there is a bit of benefit because you separate yourself from a lot. The people that are in Manchester are like, they don't get away from the elite sport environment,
Yeah.
whereas I am now, like right now, I'm completely removed from it. Like nobody's watching what I'm doing, and there's nobody to like talk to that's heavily invested in the program. Like I can vent and speak to other people about it, but it's like someone talking to me about their day job. Like they don't really understand what's going on and the implications of it. So, but it's just nice to be able to talk about it and not have like somebody else that's also negative about it.
But sometimes the negativity feeds the negativity, doesn't it? I think there's a lot of progress, not so progress, there's a lot of benefits to being surrounded by people in your field, because you can learn more about the field and get inspired. But also, like you said, I think there's the flip of the head where actually it can feed negativity or self-doubt and things like that as well.
And it's nice when you go back to being in that environment, people are like, oh, what have you done? Do you have a good weekend? It's like, yeah, I did this and that, and I've done something a bit different to training day in, day out. I've seen friends. There's a lot more to do down in London. So
do you think your balance of training to be an elite athlete and embodying that as your identity and being able to manage relationships and life is actually the key to being better at your sport?
I don't know. I feel like it does have a knock on, like those relationships, like family, my other half, Leo, like it puts a lot of strain on them, especially Leo, because she's living and breathing it with me.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say I've necessarily struck that balance yet. I feel like I'm always packing a bag and going somewhere and doing something. I mean, I look at other people and I'm like, you're not doing as much as me, but like, and you're not living out of a bag. So that must be quite nice. But then there are aspects of it that I'm like, yeah, but now I'm in London and I'm in my nice environment.
Happier in other areas.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess it's just managing it and finding what works for you, because I've only been full-time athlete since the end of Feb. I haven't really fully explored like what's the best working scenario for like friends, family. Like my mum's moving at the moment and she's going on at me about taking bikes out of the shed so that she can move, and I'm like, she's like, oh, you need to do it on Saturday and Monday and do this, and I'm like, I need to train, so I'm not going to go up on Saturday. Sunday won't work because I'm training at the velodrome. Monday might work, but then that might have a knock-on effect because I have a gym session on Monday as well. So what time might, like, all these things go around in your head, and so I'm constantly thinking, what can I prioritize to get my training done, what's going to be sacrificed, and like it just,
and I guess essentially because the people that know you and the people that love and support you and that are in your network, so to speak, they'll understand that your sport is at the top of the pyramid, like what you want to do and achieve in your goals is at the top, and that sometimes other things have to give. Would you say that, because I think having a strong support network, and then I always say like your vibe is your tribe, and surrounding yourself with the right people is really important. Do you think that having those kind of people along the way have helped with motivation, or has it all been purely yourself?
I'd say a lot of the motivation is like internal. I'd say I get motivated by people within the sport and like certain characters when I'm training, but sometimes it's like everybody, they struggle with motivation sometimes, and it's about when you realize that you're struggling with motivation and you are a bit tired, it's being able to do, if you need somebody to vibe off, then go and find that person, go for a ride with them, ask them if they're on the track session that you're on, go and seek it and find it. If you need to pick yourself up and you know that music's your trigger, listen to the music while you go, just try and use the tools that you have available to you and like the people as best you can to like bring the best out of yourself. But yeah, I'd say a lot of the motivation for me is intrinsic, and I guess that's cycling. I was like, rugby was a team sport. Well, it is a team sport. I don't know why I'm talking past tense, but and cycling,
obviously you've made the transition from team sport to kind of a solo sport, really.
I find it quite difficult to sometimes get motivated because people, it's typically like in the velodrome, it's quite quiet. Sometimes they're playing like funeral music over the PA system. You're like, oh God. So
you don't want any slow beats. You need some.
I know, you've forgotten your speaker and you're like, oh, I'm here on my own. I've got to go and absolutely annihilate myself for like a 30-second effort. I'm going to be on the floor afterwards. And I'm like, you're like sitting there like, this is like, what am I doing? But if you do remember your speaker, or like, you've got some people there, blast out some music and all of a sudden the session just changes. Or like people shouting at you, like in Manchester you hear some people shouting for you, but there's a lot less of it because everyone's in an elite sport environment. They're like focused on what they're doing, they're not so interested in what you're doing. And I'm a big shouter. People hit like I have a voice like a tannoy when I'm in the velodrome, and people hear me shouting and then I get shouts back and I feed off that a lot. Like, so I quite like it. I'll encourage other people and then they just get behind you. And then before you know it, everybody's shouting at each other, like, to go faster. And I'm not in the elite sporting environment. I'm on a bloody public session, and it's good because
it's fuel to the fire, isn't it? I think a lot of the time presumption is an elite sport that you're always against each other, but actually you'll both get out so much more if you support one another. And rally each other on.
I definitely think you're only as strong as your training partners, basically. And if they can bring you on, then you're both going to be brought on.
Brilliant. What's a typical training session like for you, and how has it changed from sport to sport?
So skiing was obviously, you very much need somewhere to go and do it apart from the gym stuff, so that was very expensive, time consuming. You'd be away for like more camp based stuff on the hill. And then cycling is more, can do it anywhere, and that's been proven during lockdown. I got my PB when I came out of lockdown, first race back.
I was going to ask, actually, I bet the lockdown has really benefited you, because obviously the streets have been a lot more quiet, life has like slowed down a little bit, but actually from a training perspective it probably opens up a lot more outdoor style training.
Well, I would say the biggest thing has been the recovery, and when I was working full-time and training, I had enough time to recover. I wasn't having to do a 40-minute cycle into work, a 40-minute cycle back, pretending to be doing stuff at work, and falling asleep because you're like, your brain tired and you're like, I'm really not productive, but I have to sit here because it's 20 to 5 and I've got 20 minutes left, and you're like, whereas when you're working from home, you can actually switch off a bit. You can have the radio on, you're sitting down, you're not as like, although sitting down is not great for you, like, but you're able to recover. And I think that was a key thing. So I could do these hard sessions, and I could do them in my lunch break because I can have the turbo set up ready to go. And
there's not a lot of transport time or commuting. Or
not like if I'm at the office in Canary Wharf, like it's I can walk out and go to Pret and pick the wrong food to eat for lunchtime. Or like when you're at home, you're like, okay, well, I've got lunch on because I've got like good food, meal prep, and then do you know what, I can have that ready because I can be cooking that whilst I'm doing a bit of work. Then I can take my lunch break and do my session and then eat my food straight away. I can still be working, but I'm not having to travel anywhere. I've done the session and I'm now recovering, but I'm like typing in.
You can create your optimum environment in a smaller space rather than having to, because I think we forget it, isn't it? Is it Steve Jobs that's famous for wearing the same thing every day because he likes to minimize the energy expenditure on other things.
I mean, it makes
sense.
That
he can just it's so that he can just, I think it's Steve Jobs, so he can just focus on the task at hand. And I guess lockdown makes sense in that way as well, because you're not having to commute or, like you said, listen to all this external noise and distractions. You can just create that environment in your own little hub and then kind of get the results from there.
Definitely, like, it was, lockdown worked quite well for me in terms of training, and it enabled like me to have a bit of time off as well to start off with. I was like, well, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen, so time off and actually enjoy riding a bike. And then it got more serious as the year went on.
Do you have different points within your year where you have to train differently, or you need more motivation or less, and how do you come back from, let's say, a really big race? Is there like essential recovery that is needed after that? Like, what's the prep? Talk us through
just realizing it intrinsically for me. Like, I'm one of the people that I will just train and train and train and train, and it's not necessarily good for you to do that. And I feel like I'm at that point at the moment where I'm borderline overtrained, and not the past couple of days I wasn't going as fast as I usually am, so that's an indicator that maybe something, maybe I'm doing too much. Like, I'll train for a month straight because if I'm not doing something towards my goal, then I'm like, and like it might just be a gym session, but it's not a full rest day. So like all these, it's only an hour, takes a lot out of you, like neurally. And then it has a knock on. Then the next day I'll be on the velodrome. Like, it's only one session, but it's still like training day in, day out. It's still chipping
away.
So I can't remember what your question was, but I'm just...
No, it's really interesting. It was about how your training changes, the importance of rest, and is there a difference between pre-big event and post-big event?
Yeah, so everything, but like, you have this target in your mind, like say a world championships, and everything is geared towards that, and you kind of, you build it up and up and up and up, and you train your strength, you train your speed, you usually do endurance, strength, speed work, and then you race. And so when you get to the race and then you stop, like quite often by the time you get to race, you're like, I'm ready for a break. And then you might have like a week, 2 weeks, like full recovery.
But it really depends
on when the next race is. And I feel like at the moment we had a few races at the beginning of the year, like end of January and then March time, and they were big targets because you hit a good time there and you go into the games. So, and then I got put on the program, and then it's been like, okay, now you're on the program, let's train.
Yeah.
So I've not really had a real like proper break from it, but usually you would go real hard and build it up into an event, and then you'd have a bit of a rest, or you'd have you do it in blocks basically. But because it's usually during the winter, you usually get summer blocks. If you go on holiday, you can just take your bike with you and do some endurance work and actually enjoy the summer.
What we all need.
Yeah.
How do you take care of yourself in every aspect, so mentally, physically and emotionally, when you are in those peak times of training and it's relentless? How do you kind of make sure that you're giving a bit of time for yourself, if any?
I don't really feel like I switch off from it that well. Like my brain is always, I can't sit still. So whether I don't know, I can't switch off. So I'm always doing something, and like I'll be thinking in the back of my head, oh, I need to go and do that. So I start taking tires off my wheel and replacing them with new ones, and I'm like, oh, I need to do that. So then I'll go off, and like I'm trying to, it's not just like the sport that gets in the way. I can't sit still. Like I've got a scaffold board out the back there and some scaffold. Today the Danish oil came and some like blades to cut the metal, and I'm like, I want to go do it, but it's raining, so I'm like, maybe I won't do it today. But I'm always like,
so are you someone that thrives off being busy, would you say?
No, I've like, and then I don't,
or is it just a constant internal monologue?
I don't even have internal monologue. I just do it. Like I just do stuff, not necessarily the most important stuff like tidying up after myself, but like the stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go and do that. I end up going and doing it, and then I get quite stressed actually. Like I find it quite, because I have all these things in my head that I want to do and I need to do. And then I try and find time for it, and then you throw in some social plans in there, and I'm like, well, I haven't got time for that. Like I've got to train, and I've got to like build a bench and like put up this and like all these little projects in my head. So again, I'm losing track of like what I'm talking about, but
no, it's totally fine. I think it's really interesting to see, because it really reflects how much actually the different areas of your life aren't separate. They're all together and they're all interlinked, and one always has to give for another. And actually it's a lot more difficult than people think it is to kind of find that balance and make sure that you do give some time for yourself. But if you ever did have downtime, what would you do?
Write a list for the things that I've forgotten.
You're as bad as me. I have endless lists.
I don't always write a list. That's the thing. I think in my head, I'm like, because I'm driving somewhere to go and do something, like take something to the dump, or like go and drop something off or pick something up, and I'll be like, shit, I've forgotten to do that. And then I'll be like, I need to write that down, but I'm driving. So then I get to where I'm like, I'm sure I'm forgetting something. But when I do write a list, like it does help, because then you have something to come back. And then
Great
notes on your phone is great. You can just highlight it and just put a line through it. You're like, okay, good, that's done. But then the list, sometimes if you put something boring on the list, it never gets done. There's things you don't want to do.
There's like 3 types of tasks, aren't there? There's like the quick and easy ones, the ones that take a bit more time, and then the ones that chip away towards a long goal. But quite often we either get stuck in the quick and easy because it's satisfying to tick it off, or we get stuck in the end goal, and then the boring ones, which are the middle ones, always get left behind.
Like who wants to phone up and speak to Thames Water about your bill? Right.
Oh, don't. I live in a shared house.
Final notice.
I always pass it on to everyone else in the house, because I'm like, I'm not chasing that. I don't have time.
I get them passed on to me, so
you don't get the freedom of avoiding that. What qualities would you say, like as an athlete, actually the things that you've learned through training in elite sport help you in other things in life?
I think it's just like having a goal and being able to dedicate yourself to it. I think so. People find you attractive for jobs because they're like, well, you've been an elite athlete, so you're clearly very driven. But when you're still doing the sport, like they think that you're all of a sudden going to be driven to do what they want you to do. But you're like, actually, I'm still this is still like burning in the back of my head. So I think, the main thing is like, if you want to go do something, you just need to throw yourself into it. Like
100%.
Like just go for it. Like be not narrow-minded, but kind of
have tunnel vision, I guess.
Yeah, there's an engineer in the cycling scene called Dan Bigham, and he talks about reverse engineering. So you want to be here. What do I need to do to get here? So do I need to pass an exam? Do I need to speak to this person? Do I need to get some experience doing this to then get me into that? And so you find out what your end goal is. You work backwards, all the stepping stones to get there, and you're going to get there. I think that's the main takeaway, is that like, you can focus yourself on elite sport, but it doesn't just stay in the elite sport environment. It can be carried over into anything. You just need to be focused and dedicated to it.
Could you have imagined, say, your 15-year-old self, was it always the goal to become an elite athlete, or is it something that kind of just came on your radar and then you just ran with it?
Yeah, I was always thought I was going to play rugby. So I was like, well, school's not important. I'm going to play rugby.
That was like me with performing. I was like, get me out. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I would do school and I would do all right at it, but I would do it because I needed to get it done so that I can carry on doing what I wanted to do. So it was like, oh, you've got, work is due. It's always the night before. Like I'd never go above and beyond. I'd just do what I needed to do. And they said, actually, hopefully my brother listens to this, probably won't, but if he gets this far, then thanks for listening, Cash.
Then well done.
They said like at school, they were like, if I had my brother's like dedication to like the school work, then I would do well. But I just didn't like put in as much as he did, but he would put in more and maybe not get so much out of it. Whereas I would just do it. And I'm like, I just power into something. I'm like, it needs to be done. Get it done. Like do what we can, like get it done as fast as we can. And then I can go and play rugby again.
And then you can do what you love to do.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because they like said that you didn't have like the motivation, but then it's very evident that you had that motivation.
I was hyper motivated to do something else. That's the problem.
Which is so interesting because I think that's the thing that schools miss. It's like actually people just don't give a toss about algebra and they've got more interesting things that they want to channel their energy into.
Yeah, like I just wanted to do other things, and I guess that's the weakness of the school system, if you like. Like they're trying to get you to university is their end goal, because the more people that go to university, the better it is for them. But actually that doesn't work for everybody. So and like, I haven't got a degree and I've had a 15-year career in television, and
which is incredible.
Then that was just an opportunity that led to another opportunity, a bit of work experience in one company led to me, working for Sky. I've worked for BBC, ITN, Channel 4, Olympics, Commonwealth Games, and it was just one thing led to another, and you just take each opportunity as it comes.
I like that organic flow of it as well, because I think sometimes a lot of people can feel really stuck, especially when they're trying to figure out, do I want to go to university? Don't I? What do I want to do with my life? Where's my passion? And I think your evidence that actually you can do whatever you want to, just put your mind to it. And then actually when you get that opportunity, give it your all, because it might lead to something else, to something else, to something else. And then you build those connections along the way. And then before you know it, you're successful in a way that wasn't necessarily the conventional idea of success. Yeah,
and that's exactly it. Like I was at 19, I'd managed to worm my way into television, and although it wasn't something that I wanted to do. It's not something that I want to do. It's not something that I wanted to do like up until like I didn't ever want to do it. It's engineering. I feel like I'm much more creative, but because the money was good, it paid to do. It enabled me to do the things I wanted to do, and because it was just the perfect job to be able to
balance out. I think that's the difficult thing with the creative life. I always call it your muggle job. So your like non-creative job is your muggle job. And if you can find something you don't mind doing and that pays good, then that's kind of one hurdle crossed already, because then you've got an income. There's less pressure on the creativity to provide an income, because you can just push for it and enjoy it because you've got this financial support. And then because it doesn't make you want to like actually pull your eyebrows off, you actually still have motivation to pursue the dream.
One of the most difficult things with that is, though, like I've found this throughout the years, like I want to be creative, and I actually I want to be a DOP. I love photography. I love creating, editing, like I love the whole process of television. But because everyone's seen me as this Blaine, he works in television as an engineer, I get typecasted as I'm just an engineer. Whereas I've created bits of content for various people and like some companies, and because they haven't typecasted me, and they don't realize that I'm a broadcast engineer on the side. But so you need to be careful. I'm hoping that this like time period that I spend in cycling will then enable me to I'm going to stop the broadcast engineering stuff. Cycling is the main focus, and then after that I want to start fresh and do something that I actually want to do, by which point, because of the cycling, I'll be used to earning minimal money, and then I can take another minimal paid job, rather than thinking I just want the pot of gold that is television engineering.
Do you find there's always that difficult, I think external pressures as well as internal, but that balance of wanting financial security and then wanting to love what you do and be as creative as possible.
Yeah, it's very difficult when you're getting the money to say no. I want to do this because I enjoy it more.
Yeah.
And the money.
Yeah. Makes the world go round, right?
It does. And like you say to yourself, like, oh yeah, it's gonna like enable me to do what I want to do. But actually it's when I was freelancing, and you just end up saying yes to everything because you just like, well, I don't know when the next pot of money's going to be coming from, so I'll just say yes to this, and then you end up overloading yourself. So I think it's important to, even if you are pursuing your muggle job and what you actually want to do, I think it's important to actually set boundaries and say, okay, I'm going to do this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I'm not doing any of it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so that I can actually focus on it and give it some 50% of my time to try and grow it, because that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm also a freelancer, so I relate to everything you said. I'm a freelance social media manager, content creator, writer. That's my muggle job. And then my life is in creative in all senses. So radio, podcast, and then theatre, TV. But obviously it's like sport. It's very ebb and flow. You kind of have to go with it and just take the opportunities where you come. So I totally relate to the sense of boundaries. But I don't know about you, but I find I'm trying now to implement really strict boundaries with my muggle life, but actually I have no boundaries with my creative life. Is that the same for you? Yeah,
and that's another thing. I think you need to take time away from both, and because that's where you're going to find your inspiration. Like if you're just thinking, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that to try and make this the full-time thing, and then you've got your muggle job in the background, but that every spare minute of your day is this, you're going to lose sight of what it is at the end of this that you actually wanted, and then it's going to become like your muggle job, and you're going to
it'll become another one.
Yeah.
Do you think that's maybe why you've come into the elite sport and the cycling later on in life? It's almost like you needed to do these other bits along the way to find the motivation and love for it.
No, I think it was just like circumstances that like I would have been doing this when I was 19 if I 18 if I had the opportunity and knew about it. But I think because like in para sport, people come into it later, and it often lasts a lot longer than in able-bodied sport, because there's a small pool of athletes, and like you could be a professional rider that gets hit by a car, ends up with some sort of nerve damage, and then all of a sudden you have this new career in paracycling.
Yeah, you've opened up. And I think that's actually really powerful. Because I think so many people see injury or setbacks as like something that takes away, but actually it opens up so many doors. And
I wish someone said to me at the beginning when I first got injured, rather than you're not going to play rugby again, but they said to me, actually you're a para athlete, like you can now compete in parasport potentially, you should explore it. And like I see people, there's a kid at the velodrome, he's got 2 club feet, so he's a classic C5, maybe a C4, so there's 5 categories in paracycling, and 5 is the least disabled and 1 is the most. And I said to him, look, just so you know, you're a para athlete. And he was like, no, I like competing with my friends. And I'm like, there's nothing to say that you can't continue competing in able-bodied, because that's what I do, because that's where most of the races are. So, but just so you know, you're really good, and you could also do paracycling. Anyway, he told his parents, and they were like, why is he telling you that? And it's like, come on, open your minds up, because actually you've got 2 club feet, and once you get past like 16, 17 years old and everyone starts accelerating away from you, that it's because your disabilities
and rather than it setting you back and making you quit the sport altogether, you can utilize this and be in this avenue that could propel you even further. So
I actively tell people and put them in touch with British Cycling where I can. If I see somebody that I'm like, okay, you're cycling and you've got something wrong with you. Like I saw a bloke the other day, he had loads of cables, he was wired up all over the place, but I cycled up alongside him and started chatting to him, told him I was a paracyclist, and nice to see him out doing like what he can with what he can. He had MS, but he was cycling because that was something that he could do while the pools were shut, so he wasn't necessarily interested in cycling, but I was like, if you do want to do something competitive, then parasport, like you've probably never thought about it. And he was like, no, I haven't really, but like, thanks for letting me know, because no one told me, so I feel like I have a duty to tell people.
I was going to ask you what your advice would be for anyone, say, that's gone through a similar situation to you, or somebody that wants to get into elite sport. And actually, it's quite nice that you're being a mentor, like a silent mentor, coming along and dropping these little nuggets of gold and giving people inspiration along the way.
I think it's important, because I'm not going to be around in it forever, but like, you know, I might lead somebody else into it, and who knows, they might be the next, they might come start overtaking me. Probably not for a while, but you never know.
And then it'll be the red button moment where you'll want to take over them again.
Exactly. Yeah. Stay on top.
Speaking of staying on top, what's your relationship with success?
My relationship with success is, it's very internal, because in cycling it's like timed, so you're always trying to beat yourself. And on the paracycling circuit, if you like, I'm the top in the C5 for my race, so I'm competing against myself effectively. Like, there's nobody that's overtaking me now. Like, my PB is the time that I'm trying to beat. I might win a race, but it might, like when I got my national title, I think I won and I didn't get my fastest time, so I wasn't very happy with it. So I've got this gold medal hanging around my neck and I'm national champion with a time that I'm not very happy with. So it can be a little bit like dissatisfying. So
because it's that solo sport where you can't really bounce off the energy of the team and the team energy. It's more like, oh, that it's just me, it's on me.
Exactly. So yeah, it's very, success is so measurable that even though from the outsider it looks like success, it doesn't necessarily feel like success. So, and I guess that's like the driving force that keeps you going to strive for better times, is that you want to feel that success yourself that everyone externally sees you having.
I think that's really humbling as well, actually, to hear someone that is so successful as yourself, like gold medal hanging around your neck, to still be like, I want better, I can do better, I want more for myself. And I think for anyone that's looking for motivation in everyday life, it should be yourself that you're competing against. You should be competing with your own best, not someone else's best. And obviously in sport it's different, but you know, there's an element of both. But I think that's actually a really important message to carry through, is that actually the only person you are ever competing against is you. And that should be your main drive. I
think I got, when I won that national title, a friend of mine, Max, was filming me, and I think the soundbite from that was, I shouldn't be rewarded for my slowest time.
Oh, that's so sad.
That's how I felt. I was like, I've just won, but I shouldn't be rewarded. Because I wasn't happy with it. Like, I wasn't happy with my performance. So do
you think it's that kind of, I don't want to say cup half empty, but they're like always striving for more, that probably is the main reason why you have kept progressing?
Well, like, I have half an eye on what I'm doing, half an eye on what the rest of the world's doing. And if that time's not beating the rest of the world, then I'm like, it's not good enough.
What do you think, in say in another life, you would have done if it wasn't elite sport? Or is there absolutely nothing?
I would have been a director of photography and just pursued, and probably gone to film school.
Oh, fun! Come over to the actor side of life.
Well, I just, like, I would like to go to film school, but I just don't feel like, when you've got a mortgage and like everything else like that, it's feasible to then go back and revisit that. But that network that you get from going to film school, you know, those people often end up setting up businesses together and doing their own thing, because one person wants to be a director of photography, one person wants to be a director, one person wants to be a producer, and before you know it, you've got a production company set up, and you've just left university. So I've kind of missed out on that, and it's very hard to get into these little niche communities. So
it's very much not what you know, it's who you know. It's calling on favors and things like that.
Exactly.
It's the same reason like why I'm blessed to talk to you today, because Nathan put us in touch.
It's who you know. Exactly. And like, I know people in the industry. I feel like, you know, it'd be nice for them to be able to help me out, and I have asked for help to try and get into it, and right now is not the best time for me to be able to dedicate time to it, and I understand that. But in the past, when I have had time dedicated to it, I've asked for a foot in the door, and like, I get some experience, and it's never really come to fruition. And I think that's very difficult for like those. It's hard because it's like a really good friendship, and then you haven't had the support that you like. I basically, how it makes me feel is like, I don't think you can do it, and I'm like, do you know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go do it.
Prove you wrong. Again, I love the fact that you always turn it into a positive as well, because it can be, like you said before, because I know you've spoken quite openly, I've seen things on websites and things like that about how initially when you came into the cycling community, there wasn't the funding there to back you, so you were literally doing everything solo. And what would you say?
To an extent, like, I've been put on the program and I've been given support. But so I race the 1 kilometer. If I get selected for the games, it will be on the basis of the 1 kilometer. And I've been on the program since February, and they still haven't given me a bike for the team sprint, which is a different size bike. And so it got to the point yesterday where I was like, I was doing a team sprint type, it's called a flying 200. It's very much the type of, you should be doing it on a team sprint bike with drop handlebars rather than when I ride.
Got you. So your actual physical setup is entirely different, because one is a lot more open,
you're like
and the
really
other is quite internalized.
And then the other one, you want to be a lot longer, and you want to be on the drop handlebars. And so it got to the point where I was like, I should have this support, and I should have this particular like type of bike to do the effort, because once I'm selected on Tuesday, fingers crossed, I then want to be in the mix for the team sprint, because then they know I'm going to the games, and like, let's see if I'm the fastest man 2 or man 3 that British cycling have. Like, I want to win gold in not just the kilo, but I want to win it in the team sprint. But because that bike's not ready, I've had to get in touch with a bike company and say, look, I need a bike. If I get selected on Tuesday, I'm going to Glasgow on Thursday. Like, I want to have a bike.
Such a quick turnaround as well, yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't think it's going to be, they're not going to have a bike sorted for me by then. So I've had to spend, £1,000 on a frame so that I can build up a bike, so that when I go to that camp, I'm going to have what I need to, like, hopefully, like, start working, like, 10 weeks towards that performance. And it's just, sometimes the support is great, the medical support's great, the coaching support's great, but sometimes things just aren't happening like how I feel that they should be. Like, it's not, especially when we're this close to the games, like, I need that.
It feels like negligence, doesn't it? Because it's like, you should be acting as if I'm going to win, not putting in hurdles to prevent me from winning.
Exactly. It's slowing down. It's slowing down my progress. So I took matters into my own hands and took the problem away, basically.
Wow. I love that, because I definitely get the vibe that you're always looking for solutions rather than problems. And I think that's such an interesting mindset. Do you believe in things like manifestation and stuff? Because I don't know if you do, because if you don't, it's really interesting, because everything that you've said is a manifestation technique in itself, in that you're acting as if it's already happened, as if it's going to happen, as if it's your like existence now. And I know that there's a lot of talk nowadays about that, and like how to change your mindset so that you don't kind of get in your own way.
Yeah, I do. Well, I've never heard the term manifestation, but I guess how you've described it there makes sense. Like, and I feel like you have to convince yourself, like, if I don't believe that I'm going, then I'm not going to go. I'm not going to hit the times because I don't believe it. So you've got to see it, believe it, become it, basically.
You've got to back yourself.
So like, I'm happy to drop £1,000, or not happy to drop £1,000, but I'm happy to drop £1,000 because I fully believe that on Tuesday I'll get selected for the games. So, and then who, they might be holding back giving me that bike because they don't know if I'm going to be selected, but that just says to me that they don't believe in me. And guess what we're going to do? Prove them wrong.
I love this through message. I think it's so important, because I think nowadays a lot of people, there's so many opinions, there's so many hurdles, there's so many people, trying to put you down, and like with trolling on social media and things like that. So I think to have this level of self-motivation and say, okay, rather than take that negative comment or that situation that didn't go to plan as a negative and a reason to not do what I wanted to do, flip it and use it as a reason to keep pushing forward and to keep moving and to get that goal, because you're doing it for yourself, not for anyone else.
Exactly.
What would you say have been your favorite moments in your career?
I think they're yet to come. Hopefully it's going to be some sort of gold at the Paralympics. That would be a nice like, pinnacle moment. I think, maybe best, or even moments.
You could say your biggest learning curve, if that's
biggest learning curve has been just like doing it yourself, like unfunded, working full time. Like, that's character building stuff.
Yeah, that's madness.
It takes so much. Like, I think the biggest learning curve is probably learning that, people around me supporting me, especially my other half. I don't think I would have been able to do it without them, and especially Leo. I think it's support network.
Support networks. You've got to have the drive and all of this willpower and training and stuff, but actually the people you surround yourself with are ultimately going to be like the icing on the cake. Because
even just like having somebody to talk to about it. Like, if you just, like, I have to get, I sent an email about the bike situation yesterday. The email wasn't great, but I sent it in the heat of the moment. Usually I'll get Leo to proofread the emails and be like, what do you think of this? I'm just about to pull the trigger and set off a nuclear bomb in, and Leo's like, no, like, let's just reword it. Like, what are you after? But she was busy, so I just pressed send. Probably shouldn't have. But I think like that sort of like take a step back. Let's think it through. What's the goal? What's the outcome? I think that's like been really helpful.
Would you say that you surround yourself with people that have more of a calming energy because you have this kind of get up and go explosiveness?
Surround myself with people that are, well, like I'm not someone that has like loads of friends. I have like a core, like few friends.
Yeah.
And they're very much like, you know, if I needed to phone them up, they'd be there, be able to talk about anything, can always go round. I don't really have like too many surface level friendships. It's like usually like we are friends and it's like we are invested.
Yeah. You're in it for the long haul.
Or it's like I just feel like it's a waste of time to just like if I have like someone that's a friend and I have a conversation with them and I haven't really taken anything away from it and learned anything about them, I'm like, that was a waste of my time. Like I want to like, oh, how's your dad doing? Like, what are you up to? And like they open up and you learn things about them. I open up to them, they learn things about me. And then like you both
learn from each other as well.
Exactly. And that's like those core friendships are the ones that get you through. The surface level ones are, you know, I don't want a message saying, oh, how are you doing? Like, I want you to know how I'm doing. Like, I want you to like, you know, I say I've done something and then you kind of like guess how I might be like dealing
from that. Them almost to be part of you because they'll know before you know.
Exactly.
So going to my 4 questions that I always ask. What are 3 things you can't live without?
3 things that I can't live without. I'd say a penknife.
Explain.
Well, a penknife I always have it in my toiletries bag. It's got a tin opener on it. It's got knives, you can cut things.
So we're thinking real survival here.
Yeah, well, like but like every day, like, you know, I've pulled my nail off when I've been walking the dog this morning. So later on, guess what I'm going to get out? I'm going to get out a penknife and I'm going to like trim it a little bit. I just think it's like something that I always have with me it's always in my bag. Like,
that's so interesting.
Yeah, it has a bit of paracord and this is another item, but it's connected to the penknife. And the paracord is like, if you ever need to tie something up, because of the way you weave it, you end up with like, even though it's only this big, you end up with like so much cord. So if you ever need to tie anything together or something breaks, you've got that. So it's like my emergency thing, I guess. It's got a little screwdriver on it.
Safe Bear Grill.
So that's definitely one. Was it what am I going to do? 3 items?
It can be anything. Some people have said people, some people have said chocolate.
Tony's salted caramel chocolate. You can't live without that.
I'm so glad because I've recently introduced all of my friends to Tony's Chocolonely and they've never heard of it. I've been obsessed with it for the better part of a year and I'm so glad I'm finding my people.
But I paid, last bar I got of that, I paid £4.50 for it.
Where are you buying it from?
Yeah, I know, the shop at the top of the road. It's not.
Oh, no.
The other shop was
Sainsbury's always have it on offer.
Yeah, they just bend you over and they're like, okay, we know you want it. It's like the only thing they have for sale is Tony's. Like, this is because it turns into a bit of a restaurant at night time, so they take away the pastries.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a catering company. I won't say their name because they're extortionate. And then they leave out that and pretty much only Tony's chocolate. So
became a thing. An excuse to get it.
Yeah, and then I should say Leo, but the dog.
That's brilliant. What kind of dog do you have?
I've got he's a ratero, so he's from Mallorca, and they have their own breed called a ratero. It's basically for killing rats. When you're producing wine, you put them in the cellar, and they're like a Jack Russell but with longer legs.
Got you.
And he's great.
What's his name?
Perro, which is dog in Spanish. So he's actually
genius.
When we first, I know it is genius. Apart from when you're in Mallorca, because they're like, "What's his name?" We're like, "Perro." And they're like, "Yes, but what is his name?" Perro. They're like, "Well, I know it's a dog, but what is his name?"
No, his name is Dog.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he's great.
Oh, I love that. I really want a dog.
He's just over there chewing his bone, but he's the best.
I love it. I actually recorded an episode a few weeks ago with a friend who has a crazy dog and just is relentlessly like barking throughout the whole thing. So your dog is very calm and docile. And
he's great. When he actually came from a pound, and when I went to the pound, all the dogs were barking apart from him. I was like, you're the one.
Yeah,
You're the one.
you're my friend, come with me.
Yeah.
I love that. I think animals have so many like healing properties. They're just always so happy to see you, like they get you outside.
Yeah. Like when I'm
really
driving home from Manchester, all I'm thinking about is when I come in the door, how excited is he going to be?
Oh, I love that. He can be your like main little mascot.
Yeah,
Cheerleader.
He is. I hope I might try and take him back to Mallorca, do a little road trip over the winter if COVID allows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I might drive through France, take him back there for a little while.
Wow. And final question, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
The best piece of advice that I've been given is probably I don't know.
It's a really tough one. Or even a best piece of advice you've given yourself.
I think is just to, like, if you want to do something, is just to go and do it and just like tunnel vision and get the job done. I don't know if that's my own advice to myself or if someone's told me to do that. So another piece of advice that I had was around Christmas dinners, and to not worry about necessarily being at home for Christmas, because I'm going to live to a ripe old age, hopefully, and there'll be plenty of Christmases that I'll be able to spend at home. And whilst I'm young, I should go and enjoy Christmas in different places. So then I went to Australia for one Christmas.
Oh, wow.
I went to Austria the next with different people. And then I've been to Mallorca with Leo and her family for another Christmas. And so I think that was quite a bit of being able to, like, getting that advice and then going
and having the permission to do that as well.
Yeah. And like getting that from like somebody that's like quite, like a role model in the family to say, like, why do you want to be here? Why would you want to be here for Christmas? Like, why don't you go? And so I think that was quite a light bulb switch moment, is I don't necessarily have to be here for certain things, and I can go and pursue other things.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of like, well, the reins are off. Like, I don't know, it always stuck with me.
I think that's quite an interesting piece of advice, because I think we all do, even though we probably consider ourselves in free spirits in a lot of ways, we do tie ourselves down in certain things, especially something like Christmas. And actually, like, rightly so. I mean, I want to know what Christmas in Oz was like, because obviously it all barbecues? Did you still eat Christmas pudding? Like,
I didn't actually. I had spaghetti bolognese.
No.
And I was on a place called Fraser Island. Have you heard of that?
Yes, I have.
Biggest sand island in the world, with a load of strangers. Apart from two of my friends were there. And it was cool. We all had a big party and like set up tents and camped. And then some people had gone there in their ute, and they had set up like a disco, put on disco lights, and basically anybody that was on Christmas Day was able to just go into their big like marquee tent thing that they'd set up especially for Christmas.
My gosh.
And we had a big rave thing with them, and then it was cool. Like, no phone reception. I didn't make any phone calls at Christmas because I couldn't. And had spaghetti bolognese for dinner.
Oh my gosh, brilliant. I love that, because I guess at the end of the day it's just any other day, isn't it? But we've just created it into something. But what a great memory to share. Yeah,
it was nice. It was eye-opening, and it's nice spending Christmas with your own family, but it does make it, when everyone does come together and people aren't with their own families, it does make it nice that you've like taken experiences, you can bring that back and
spaghetti bolognese with your family for Christmas.
Exactly. Be a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. All of the prep time for all of these fancy, well, not even fancy ingredients, just a lot of prep, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I'd love to know, I did say final question, but I lied. But before I give you the opportunity to self-plug, tell everyone where to find you, how to support you, I'd love to know, like, what the vision is going forward. Do you have any big goals for the future, Mr. Unstoppable?
So my big goals are, like, obviously performance related, Paralympics. I want to get a world title. And then outside of the cycling, my goals are, I just want to spend a bit more time creating. So going to go back in. I did set up a YouTube channel and start doing a few bits.
I saw it. It's really good.
Thanks. I want to do a bit more of that, like content creating, but try and build a bit more of a channel that's actually got a bit more substance to it. And then hopefully that leads into career afterwards.
Yeah.
But I find it quite easy to do. Like, I can do that whilst I'm cycling, because it's still like cycling related. Like, if I'm doing something like when I get this new frame, I'm going to, film it and put it together, and like people can like learn how to put a bike frame together and turn it into an actual bike. That's the goal, is to try and like grow that a bit more.
Amazing. And where can everyone find you? This is your chance to self-plug all of your channels, businesses and pursuits.
Websites.
I'll link them all in case I forget.
Yeah, so I've got a website that I set up for my cycling staff, blainehunt.co.uk. I've got blainehuntmedia.com if you need any filming done, and I've got a little show reel on there and various bits that I've done. And basically through those websites, it's got links to my Instagram at bootstrapb or Blaine Hunt Media, and like my YouTube channel. I tried to make the website so it's got the cycling website, so it's got some I call it a resources page. So like if you have seen something, it's more like this is the links on where to go, and like this is actually might be useful for you, like rather than just stuff about me. I've tried to like review a few things: bike lights, commuter stuff, bike locks, the kind of stuff that you actually want to know and should like know if you want to get involved in cycling.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to commit to talk to me today. It's been so interesting to talk to you and to hear your journey and how you've got such a motivated, positive attitude towards life. It's really inspiring.
Thank you very much.
And I think you'll inspire a lot of people with this episode too.
I mean, that's the goal, isn't it? If you inspire one person and they like take up sport and like go on to bigger and better things, then like at least you've played a part in that, or inspire somebody to just get on their bike and ride, really, and like go out there and just enjoy it. Like I think that's the real goal in life, is just to inspire.